oh yeah, the New World Order. That's why we should do everything that's in the benefit of the wealthiest fucking assholes.
Hey, it's the Goblin Queen. Yo, what's going on, the Goblin Gang? I have a whole thing. I'm getting really into a little thing that I like to call obsidian. Wow, obsidian. Got this big old timeline, actually. This one's sort of arranged by time, from left to right. Left being the most early in time, right being the most late in time, I guess. And I wanted to kind of explore this little thing with you guys. This has been my, I guess, hyperfixation this last week. I'm sure a lot of you guys remember this video we watched the other day of Alex Jones, and I've been sort of thinking about it and turning it over my head and being like, I feel like there's a lot more I could dig into about this. And it turned out, as maybe you can see from the vastness of this obsidian board, yeah, there is a lot more to this. So here we go. Honestly, Alex Jones is not that involved in this whole thing. Well, no, he is, but it's a bigger picture than that. Okay. So let's watch this.
I wanted to draw a picture for listeners out there, a very simple, crude picture that describes effectively the false left-right paradigm.
All right, so I'm not going to play the whole thing because it's so repetitive. He says the same thing a million times. But he's talking about the left and right and how that's all fake. I'll play a little bit just so you get the idea.
The Republican Party props up the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party props up the Republican Party. If you had one of the political parties standing on its own, when the wind came along, it would just fall over.
Okay, I don't need to play the full thing. You get the idea. He's saying that basically Overton Windows, Chomsky manufacturing consent shit, there's an acceptable spectrum of thought and beliefs that the media tells us is true, and anything outside of that acceptable spectrum is considered extreme, even if the majority of the citizens of America believe this thing, it's still considered extreme. Something like Medicare for all would be an example I would use. Probably wouldn't be one Alex Jones would use, but I do agree with what he's saying there. Sort of. I think he's expressing it in a dumb way, but yeah. So that's what this fucking image is. It's the two parties leaning against each other. And what that does is they pretend to fight, but really they are mostly aligned in a lot of important ways. I wouldn't say every way. I think there are a lot of substantial ways that the two parties are not aligned. But as far as the elite scale, things that affect the people who actually rule, they are in complete alignment. And that's why he puts the little Illuminati eye on top of that, because it props up the elites. And honestly, I don't think that's a terrible way of putting it. All right, so I'm skipping ahead to where he actually says something here. So he just basically repeats that again and again and again. Let's go.
Out, folks. Why do you see so many leftists who mean well, like Rage Against the Machine?
This is the part I couldn't get out of my head. I could not get this out of my head. Because he's talking about leftists the way that I sort of think about Alex Jones and people who watch InfoWars and kind of the conspiratorial right wing. I have friends who are kind of right-wing leaning and very conspiratorial. And I agree with them on so much until it gets to a certain point. So I'll just let him talk.
Check it out, folks. Why do you see so many leftists who mean well, like Rage Against the Machine, Tom Morello, or Henry Rollins, who are right on so many issues but then believe in leftist policies? We need a global carbon tax, but there's an elite funding that. No, the elite, the big corporations. Okay,
I should also say this video is from 2008. So this is from before the election of Obama and McCain. They're running against each other. And yes, Alex Jones' knowledge of leftists is just rock bands. He's like, why do so many leftists who are otherwise so cool? Rage Against the Machine, Tom Morello, who's a guy from Rage Against the Machine. Henry Rollins, a Black Flag guy. But yeah, it's funny because you can imagine, Rage Against the Machine has that classic song, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Like, Alex Jones probably loves that shit, right? And he's like, oh man, why don't they agree with me on all this shit? But I want to point out, global carbon tax is what he specifically calls out. And I do want to point out, I looked up all three of these guys, and man, hey, I don't know, DuckDuckGo, whatever, Google, it doesn't find everything, but I could not find, I tried for at least 10 minutes to find anything about any of these three talking about a carbon tax. None of them have, as far as I know, and I could be wrong, as far as I know, none of them have ever even mentioned the carbon tax. So, okay, so that's just not true what he's saying. But I think he just means like they're in favor of whatever, cutting greenhouse gas emissions, or they believe in global warming, basically. All right. Continue, Alex. Sorry to interrupt.
The media advertises that big corporations and oil companies are against it. Henry Rollins doesn't know, doesn't have the documents. It doesn't understand that actually that's part of a sophisticated game that, the big corporations say publicly, we don't want this, it's bad, while they actually fund it. They know.
Okay. All right. You hear that? So Henry Rollins, Tom Morello, and Tom Morello's band, Rage Against the Machine, they all talk about carbon taxes, and they don't realize, and they mean well. They actually mean well. They're cool guys. Alex Jones is trying to reach across the aisle here and be like, no, I like them. They're good, and they mean well. I don't think they're evil. I don't think they're like demonic Babylonian shapeshifters or whatever. I think they're cool, but God, they are just so captured by the fucking elite consent manufacturing machine. They don't realize that actually the elite want a carbon tax. They want there to be punishment for, using too much carbon or whatever. This is what he's saying.
Public's awake to the fact that they're corrupt, so the public will be fooled and go and support the agenda. It's please don't throw me in the briar patch. It's the old briar rabbit situation.
All right. I think that's all we need to watch this today. But it's please don't throw me in the briar patch. I didn't know what that meant. I was like, please don't throw me in the briar patch. Briar rabbit. What the fuck is that? And I looked it up. This is a thing. It's not briar rabbit. It's brer, which I believe is short for brother. And yes, there is a, I guess this is like an old American folktale or something like that. Or maybe it's from Africa, like a Nazi kind of legend or whatever, but it's like an animal fable. There's an animated version of this from one of the most racist Disney movies, Song of the South, if not the most racist Disney movie. But I decided not to play you guys that clip. So I'll just kind of tell you the story. So Brer Fox had caught Brer Rabbit, and this time Brer Fox said he was going to cook Brer Rabbit and eat him up for good. Brer Rabbit was mighty scared. He begged, "Oh, Brer Fox, I don't care what you do with me so long as you don't throw me in that briar patch over there. Go on and barbecue me up, Brer Fox, but please don't throw me in that briar patch." Brer Fox said he was going to roast him anyhow, but when he went to hang Brer Rabbit up over the fire, he found he didn't have any string to tie him up with. "Well, I guess I can't roast you," Brer Fox said. "I guess I'll have to drown you instead." They go back and forth a few times. He's like, "I'll kill you like this." And he's like, "No, please, don't do that. Actually, he goes, "I'll kill you like this." And then Brer Rabbit's like, "Oh, good. Please kill me like that. But whatever you do, don't throw me in a freaking briar patch." And then, eventually, Brer Fox is like, "You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to throw you in the frickin' briar patch." So he goes, Brer Fox wanted to hurt Brer Rabbit as bad as he could. So he took Brer Rabbit by the legs and threw him right smack into the middle of that briar patch. He heard a lot of rustling and crackling when Brer Rabbit landed, and he waited around to see what terrible thing was going to happen. But a few minutes later, he hears somebody calling, "Oh, yoo-hoo, Brer Fox, over here." And he looks, and he sees Brer Rabbit sitting on a rock, combing the tar out of his fur. There's a part where he gets covered in tar, with a stick. "Didn't you know, Brer Fox?" called Brer Rabbit. "I was bred and born in a briar patch. Bred and born." And he hopped away. So the moral of the story is Brer Rabbit's parents had sex in a patch of thorns. No, that isn't the moral of the story. Sorry, wait, let me just, So the thing is, this guy Brer Rabbit, the protagonist of the tale, is lying. He's using reverse psychology on Brer Fox by being like, "Don't do this," and then but actually he wants him to do that, right? So it's supposed to be an allegory for how clever folksy Southern people are. Okay, cool, all right, I'm into that. But anyway, I had to look this up because I wasn't totally sure what he was saying. But so remember, this is all about carbon taxing. So he's saying that even though all these big fucking oil companies and whatever, elites in general are like, "Oh no, please don't. No, we definitely don't want an oil tax, carbon tax. We don't want there to be carbon taxing." Actually, they want carbon taxes a lot. They do want it. Now, you might think he's saying that in this, weird to make the protagonist of the story into the global elite. That seems weird. Like when Alex hears that story, is he like, "That Brer Rabbit's such a bastard," or whatever? Don't most normal people hear that and be like, "That's cool. It's cool that Brer Rabbit did that. What a fucking awesome dude." Please don't throw me in the briar patch. And he also calls it briar rabbit. Not correct. Although I guess he is kind of a briar rabbit. Is there anything more I want to hear from this?
Here's the political field, and this is where the population resides.
No, then he just goes back to the normal. Oh, and they're leaning against each other. They're pretending to fight so that we think we have choice, but actually they're in lockstep. Anyway, that's what he's saying there. Now, I got a little bit obsessed with this. I've read. This is a great book. Jane Meyer, she is I believe, a New York Times journalist. Funny quote on the front is from the New York Times. One of her colleagues, I guess, said this. But honestly, a great, and also one of the New York Times 10 best books of the year. But it is actually legit good. Dark Money, the hidden history of the billionaires behind the rise of the radical right. And it sort of charts the history of, this has been going on for a while, but it charts the recent history of the very rich, elite, kind of corporate class using their money to affect politics and how that has given them more and more and more control over what's going on. And it gets worse every fucking year. And it mostly concentrates on the Koch brothers. It goes into the Koch family and the Koch father, I guess. And there's a lot of fucking family drama in this book about the Koch brothers. There's a whole fucking power struggle between the 4 Koch brothers that split them in half. And there's one Koch brother and they're all like, fuck you, man. We're going to tell everyone you're gay. And he might not have even been gay, but they're like, we're going to tell everyone you're gay and then dad's going to cut you out of the will. And there's a whole fucking fight. But I'm not going to get into all that. For all we really got to know, I'll get into the Koch brothers later, but we really only need to know about Charles and David. These two chums here, the Koch bros. But we'll get into them more a little bit later. For now, though, I do want to quote this because I thought this was interesting and it sort of matches up. So remember this clip we just watched from Alex from 2008. And this is from Dark Money. In the final months before the 2008 presidential election, Michael Mann, a tenured meteorology and geosciences professor at Penn State University, who'd become a leading figure in climate change research, told his wife he would be happy with whichever candidate won, Obama or McCain. He was like, no difference for me, because both the Republican and the Democratic presidential nominees had spoken about the importance of addressing global warming, which Mann regarded as the paramount issue of the day. But what he didn't fully foresee was that the same forces stirring the Tea Party would expertly channel the public outrage at government against scientific experts like himself. A little bit of a spoiler there. But now that's interesting, right? Because I feel like it's easy to forget all the fucking also ran, presidential nominees. McCain ran against Obama. He's like the maverick. He's like the Republican, whatever, guy who's not that bad or whatever. Cohen brothers. You mean because he's a leftist, so he concentrates on the Cohen brothers. If he was right wing, you talk about Soros. Here, though, it's way different when left-wing billionaire people spend money. Are you talking about me? I mean, I don't like Soros either, but I definitely think the Koch brothers are worse. I mean, maybe that's my bias. I think the Koch brothers together have caused more fucking human misery than fuck. Who has done more than them to fuck the world in pursuit of their own money? You, right now, you at home watching this, your life sucks in large part because of these two guys and what they've chosen to fund. And we're going to get into this. But I do think it's interesting to point out McCain and Obama were both pro-environment. This was a big issue in the 2000s. Let's actually go back in time a little bit here to this. Well, this is from Frank Luntz. You know Frank Luntz, this guy, the Republican boy wonder, genius, advisor. This was a report that he'd made for the Bush White House. Frank Luntz Memorandum to Bush White House. The environment, a cleaner, safer, healthier America. The environment is probably the single issue on which Republicans in general, and President Bush in particular, are most vulnerable. This is from 2000. In the 90s, people really started to care about the environment and the fucking hole in the ozone layer and shit. A caricature has taken hold in the public imagination. Republicans are seemingly in the pockets of corporate fat cats who rub their hands together and chuckle maniacally, or manically, that's not right, as they plot to pollute America for fun and profit. I mean, it's for profit. It's not for fun, but yeah. And only the Democrats and their good-hearted friends from Washington can save America from these sinister companies drooling at the prospect of strip mining every picturesque mountain range, drilling for oil on every white sand beach, and clear-cutting every green forest. Yeah, so to Illuminad, not sure how you say your name, but I can tell you're pissed because I'm too woke for you, but I mean, this is where Frank Luntz is sort of being like sarcastic here. And he's saying only the Democrats and their good-hearted friends from Washington can save America from these sinister companies. No, obviously the Democrats also have done nothing about the climate. Nothing has been done. We've known about, not to say we, but global warming has been a known fact by the scientists working for ExxonMobil since 1960. We still have not done anything to slow it down. We're still no, let's suck the fucking oil out of the ground. That's killing it. And Democrats and Republicans are both doing nothing, but Republicans are a little bit more, let's fucking literally put our foot on the gas here. And Democrats are like, let's ease off the gas a little bit. They're both there's barely a difference in this between the two. Both sides are inadequate, I'll say, at dealing with the thing. And then this is also interesting, I think page 7 of this, winning the global warming debate, an overview. The most important thing to tell these people is the scientific debate remains open. Voters believe there is no consensus about global warming within the scientific community. Already this was not true. This is already the vast majority, the overwhelming scientific consensus by this time, 2000. Global warming is man-made and it is real and it is going to be a disaster unless we do something about it. But this was the advice during this time. And it's a crucial time and things are not like this anymore. But people are, at the time in the 2000s, end of the 90s, the new millennium, the environment was a big cause on both sides. The Republicans didn't used to be so anti-green. But this was his advice. Should the public come to believe that the scientific issues are settled, their views about global warming will change accordingly. Therefore, you need to continue to make the lack of scientific certainty a primary issue in the debate and defer to scientists and other experts in the field. So I think this is so interesting. Just reading this now and kind of being like, wow, they were totally successful in changing that whole thing there. So this is Karl Rove. This is also from Dark Money, Jane Meyer. Karl Rove, the operative whom George W. Bush called the architect of his 2004 re-election, had long dreamed of creating a conservative political machine outside the traditional political party's control that could be funded by virtually unlimited private fortunes. You guys remember Karl Rove? Let's see if I can get a picture of him up for you. His hope was to draft the conservative donors of all stripes into creating a self-financed militia that could be called into action without the transparency, legal restrictions, or accountability that circumscribed conventional campaigns. And that summer, the Kochs had participated briefly in a version of this project. According to the political reporter Kenneth Vogel, their representatives met clandestinely with political operatives working for other hugely wealthy donors, such as the Las Vegas casino magnate Sheldon Adelson, who you may have heard about his wife, Miriam Adelson, recently being extremely close to Trump, extremely pro-Israel, getting Trump to promise the Golan Heights and shit, going above and beyond for the Zionist cause here. The ideal, one participant said, was a never-ending campaign. After the disappointment of Obama's victory, though, the group disbanded. The Kochs, among others, regrouped. I'll put Karl Rove here because he's going to be a figure that comes back. Here's Karl Rove. I'm MC Rove. Remember when fucking Lin-Manuel Miranda did a rap with him? Jesus fucking Christ. This guy's also a fucking awful human being who's fucked you in particular, who's made your life suck. And yet, libs, fucking shit libs are always gonna fucking pander to these ghouls. All right. Now, okay, so now we're caught up. That's a little bit of history leading up to this point where Alex is talking about the carbon tax. Don't you see? The carbon tax is actually what the oil guys want. They desperately want a carbon tax. And I want to talk a little bit about an Alex Jones movie from 2007. So I guess this should actually be a little bit over here. Let's put it over here in the freaking timeline here. Why does he think fucking oil companies want a carbon tax? Well, if you watch his movie Endgame, which is actually a pretty good movie. It's not a good movie at all, but it's a good movie for trying to understand what does Alex Jones think is the point of all these conspiracies that he's talking about. This movie is about what is the end game? What do the elite want? What is their goal, right? So, and he talks about carbon tax is a major part of this documentary. So let me start with this part here. Here we go.
Sovereignty, if it were sold as a way to help the planet, The think tank also concocted the peak oil fraud as a way to create artificial scarcity. And the Club of Rome has been aggressively pushing a global carbon tax as a way to fund their planetary government.
In the draft copy of the United Nations Global Biodiversity Assessment, it states very clearly that we must reduce the human population from its current level of about 6 billion people down to about 1 billion people.
All right, so New World Order shit. I'm sure you guys have heard Alex Jones talk about that. But the global carbon tax is supposed to be applied to everyone. Everyone will get charged by how much electricity they use, how much carbon they burn, whatever, your carbon footprint, that sort of shit. You will get charged, says Alex Jones. This part here, he elaborates.
A year lost in the earth on 7 continents. World leaders announced that saving the earth was the new organizing principle for humanity and hailed it as the planet's new religion.
New religion.
They claim that CO2,
showing the fucking live Earth concerts,
which plants breathe, was killing the earth.
Oh, okay, wait. Let me go back.
They claim that CO2, which plants breathe, is killing the earth.
They claim that CO2, which plants breathe, was killing the earth, and that we must reduce the number of children we have to curtail our carbon footprint. Countries across the world marked the day by passing new carbon tax schemes and raising taxes on gasoline, natural gas, and electricity.
All right, so you see how he's positioning the carbon tax here as affecting the end consumer rather than the oil companies themselves. And so, okay, I'm Canadian. I have don't tune out, okay? I'm not going to talk about Canada that much. I'm just going to talk about it, my experience as a Canadian a little bit, how it applies to, and I know you're thinking about clicking away because no one gives a fuck about Canada. I know this. I've seen my analytics. It's a huge problem if I ever even mention Canada. So just keep watching. This is 99.9% about America. And even when I talk about Canada, I'm trying to help explain what is happening in America as well. Okay. So chill out for just 2 seconds here. Because as a Canadian, in my heart, there are other kind of, causes that I care more about and I do more towards. But in my brain, the number one the most important fucking political cause I think to be concerned about is global warming and the environment. That just is it. That's the main thing that we we care. Karen mentioned unsub. But seriously, this is literally the fate of the whole earth, Alex Jones kind of put it, he's like,
the global leaders decided that saving the world was the new primary focus.
and it's like, yeah, shouldn't it be? What do you mean? Why are you saying that like it's so weird? That seems like a big deal. The stakes are high. Now, a carbon tax, which is supposed to be taxing the highest producers of emissions, carbon emissions, oil refineries, whatever, major polluters, right? And, in Canada, we are an oil state. We are, I think, the second biggest oil reserves on earth after Venezuela. I think that's us. So we're an oil state. The Koch brothers, I believe, made most of their oil money from Canadian oil. This is a big thing here. It's Koch brothers, right? So that still is related to America. And so we have a thing here where we have, especially from the one province of Alberta, which is our most Republican, most conservative province. Oil is the major industry there, and they make tons of money in Alberta. And they always vote for the fucking worst people. But anyway, whatever. I'm talking too much about Canada. But carbon tax is a big issue here. We actually had a carbon tax instituted, I think in 2018 by Trudeau. It was talked about for a long ass time beforehand. Actually, around this time that we're talking about here, around 2008 or so, it was a big discussion, and both liberals and conservatives were like, yeah, we definitely need a carbon tax. We definitely need to do that. We will do that soon. And it didn't happen until 2018, I believe, by Trudeau. And as soon as he did it, conservatives were like, fuck you, fuck the carbon tax, it's evil. And honestly, it does. So the carbon tax does reduce emissions, which is good, but it also gets passed down to the end consumer, aka it's a regressive tax, because there was no attempt by the Liberal Party to force the actual people doing the emissions, these oil companies, to just swallow the fee. They just started charging more for oil, which, as Alex Jones sort of alludes to in this, he's like, gasoline, electricity, stove, like natural gas, whatever. And that is kind of, I think, true in a way. And so I am against carbon taxes myself, but for a very different reason than Alex Jones. I don't think it's funding the New World Order, which is, to be honest, a completely delusional fucking boogeyman that right-wing conspiracists have convinced themselves is a remote possibility, that some organization like the UN would be able to be like, and now there's one world government. Get your head out of the clouds. That is never going to happen. That is not a realistic outcome here. Please, can we have a conversation that's based in reality? I don't think that this is the right reason, but I do think carbon taxes are a neoliberal fucking half measure that maybe would have helped if we had done it in the fucking 80s to reduce emissions. Now, to do it now is ridiculous. And it punishes the end user. It punishes the people who are the lowest rung of the totem pole, not the people who actually need to be punished. We need to do so much more than carbon taxes. It's a joke that that's even where we're still having a fucking conversation right now. Sorry, a little bit of a tangent there, but I don't want you guys to think I'm defending carbon taxes here. But when he talks about carbon taxes, he does it, I'll say this, he does it in a way that's very convenient to the oil lobby. All right, and that's kind of interesting. There's another version of it called cap and trade. Companies get a certain amount of carbon to emit. If they go over, they have to pay other companies to use their underused carbon. Research shows carbon taxes do effectively reduce greenhouse gas emissions. That does seem to be the case. They do seem to help a little bit. A number of studies have found in the absence of an increase in social benefits and tax credits, a carbon tax would hit poor households harder than rich households. Negative impacts. That's basically where I stand on it. I'm against them in general. R.I.P. Michael Parenti. I do want to play a little bit of this clip here where he talks about conspiracies.
Here's another thing. Conspiracy theory, for some people, conspiracy theory, by definition, cannot be proven true. Because when it's proven true, it's declared to no longer be a conspiracy theory, but a fact. I mean, I've had arguments with people on the phone, and I realized, I said, so then the conspiracy theory does apply. I said, what conspiracy theory? That's a fact. You proved to me that that's a fact. I said, but it's a conspiracy fact. It's people colluding.
This is the part I want to point out. A conspiracy is people colluding
in secret to pursue illegal and unlawful and immoral goals with the intent of advancing the interests of people who are not acknowledging their association to this action.
Conspiracy. People are colluding in secret to pursue illegal, unlawful, or immoral goals with the intent of advancing the interests of people who are not acknowledging their association to this action. I think that's a good definition of conspiracy. Man, I mean, it's off the cuff, it seems. So maybe it could have been worded a little bit more clearly, but I think that's a good way to think about it. And the rest of this video, he's kind of giving examples of it. I'll just play the first one.
Okay, as I've said, and I'm glad to see that Mickey Huff, he made the same point yesterday, but I have said it years ago that I don't have a conspiracy theory, but I do have.
Yes, this is Obsidian. Yeah.
Have
it's so sick. I just got onto it. It's awesome.
Conspiracy analysis. And that should be our answer. Any work you're doing, when somebody brings this thing up like a little knee-jerk.
I like that too. I don't have a conspiracy theory. I have conspiracy analysis.
Like a bell ringing. Oh, why do you have a and it's not that innocent or all that stupid. It's a very effective weapon. It's a way of putting closure on your investigation or argument. It's a way of delegitimating what it is you have to say by just using this term. The term has become so charged, as I showed you with the Walter Karp one, that even when someone's making a brilliant conspiracy analysis, he has to acknowledge a distance and say, but this is no conspiracy theory. There are actual conspiracies.
Okay, sorry. This is where he gets it.
Conspiracies exist in the law. In the law, they use the term all the time. It's a feature of law. Here, 2006, a federal court adjudged the major tobacco companies to be guilty of a 50-year conspiracy to deceive the public about the addictive and health-damaging qualities of cigarettes.
Tobacco, the tobacco industry. And all they were doing was just killing smokers. That's a shitty thing to do, and covering up all this research and making all this fake research about how smoking is harmless and just kind of flooding the zone with shit, and making it confusing as to what the actual answer was. But as evil as that is, in the pursuit of selling more fucking nicotine tobacco, that is still not as bad, as overarchingly evil as the oil industry and the very similar shit that they have done. Tobacco invented the question of the science method. Yeah, well said. And yeah, thank you, Big Jerry. The stream is going good. Okay, I mean that's not great, but I'll try and improve. And here we go. So this is the beginning of our story. All right, we've got Alex Jones. We've got the carbon tax thing. This is 2007, 2008 kind of era. Let's see what happened after Obama won. Well, when Obama won, this group, what do you call this? A think tank, an org? It's called Americans for Prosperity. Became very, very big. This is the website. About us. Empower every American to pursue their version of the American dream. We are the premier grassroots advocacy organization. Oh, okay. I can't even read this fucking thing. How fast do you think I can read Americans for Prosperity web designer? Fuck you, you dumb idiot. Empower every American to pursue their... Okay, whatever. They've got a bunch of bullshit about how they're a grassroots organization on here. Our mission, creating change. Now, this is from 2008. So this was their old website. Oddly, much easier to navigate. But they had a pledge where they were sending out to all these politicians, and they were like, download a copy of the federal pledge to send to your federal representative. Download a PDF of a state and local pledge to send to your fucking local state representative. Federal pledge. I, your name here, pledge to the taxpayers of the state of... your state here, and to the American people that I will oppose any legislation relating to climate change that includes a net increase in federal government revenue. This is carbon tax. This is an anti-carbon tax pledge. I will not, do a fucking carbon tax. And look at the thing up here. No climate tax. That's the whole fucking thing. A big issue for the Americans for Prosperity. Now, who are the Americans for Prosperity? This is actually from a different book. This one's from Sons of Wichita, which is another book about the Koch brothers. Americans for Prosperity positioned itself at the vanguard of the anti-Obama rebellion. In late April, as House Democrats prepared to introduce cap-and-trade legislation, which again, that's another kind of version of carbon tax, to limit greenhouse gas emissions, the group launched a national hot air tour, replete with a red-hot air balloon warning of global warming alarmism. It staged rallies targeting the union-friendly Employee Free Choice Act. Yeah, they're also anti-union, they're anti-healthcare, they're a lot of things. But it seems like one of their big causes anyway, no carbon tax and just no to any regulation of the oil industry, which is weird since they're such a grassroots organization. This is from another website. This is about that hot air balloon tour. The Intellectual Conservative Arizona, this website here. And they're like, amazing. The free market grassroots group, Americans for Prosperity, will bring its nationwide hot air balloon tour to Phoenix. Oh, wow. Cool. Fun. Oh, it's so cool. They're bringing a hot air balloon tour to be like, enough hot air from our politicians. Americans for Prosperity again describe themselves as the nation's premier grassroots organization, committed to advancing every individual's right to economic freedom and opportunity. Cool. All right. Well, I showed you the pledge. Here's a bunch of people who actually signed the frickin' pledge. Pat Roberts, Roger Wicker, Jeff Flake, Doug Lamborn, who else? John Fleming, Michelle Bachmann, Jim Jordan, Pete Olson, Cynthia Loomis. I mean, tons of politicians signed this shit. So many in Kansas. Wow. A lot of people actually did sign this shit. This actually did something. So, okay, it's interesting. So remember Alex Jones said, the companies themselves will say they don't want a carbon tax, but actually in secret they do. They would love a carbon tax because they need to fund the New World Order. Okay, well, as it turns out, the fucking Americans for Prosperity is a directly controlled Koch fucking organization. This is from 2020 to 2022. But this was always the case. The Americans for Prosperity were funded by Charles Koch, and this is I guess after the other guy, David Koch, died. But the Koch brothers fund all these other things. This all gets funneled into look who's at the bottom, right? Americans for Prosperity and the Americans for Prosperity Action Fund, $40 million from Koch Industries, $119 million. Plus $280 million. It all goes into Americans for Prosperity, from the Kochs to the Americans for Prosperity, down to whatever fucking political advocacy they need to have done for them. So these are the Koch brothers. Are you guys familiar with the Koch brothers? I hope so, because they play a very prominent role here. Oh, yeah, good question. Was this related to the whole Tea Party thing or before or after? What we're talking about here is specifically the environmental anti-carbon tax, pro-oil push, which did take over. There was specific funding that Americans for Prosperity and other oil groups did to influence and appropriate the Tea Party movement. The Tea Party became very anti-environmentalist, even though one of the founders of the Tea Party actually was a right-wing climate person who did believe in global warming. But yeah, it's not just... I'm going to play this. This is just for a documentary about the Koch brothers.
2015 was the hottest year on record, according to the World Meteorological Organization, with 2016 looking like it will be even warmer.
April 2016 was the hottest April ever recorded.
And the last decade was the hottest in history.
Some people barely had time to get out.
Out-of-control forest fires and drought are plaguing the United States and Canada. The entire uncontrolled Congress and Senate.
The United States Congress is the single biggest obstacle to global resolution of climate change.
It becomes like there's an omerta in the Republican side speaking out about climate change.
That's Jane Meyer.
But in reality...
That's Jane Meyer, the person who wrote Dark Money, this book.
Republicans' refusal to act on global warming is largely the handiwork of these two American billionaires, Charles and David Koch.
And they're so fucking old. They're so old. They're going to die. Well, one of them is already dead. Charles Koch is still alive, this old fucking ghoul fuck. And he still is like, no fucking climate regulation, no fucking nothing. Yeah, no, oil companies get to do whatever they want. That's the rule. Why? Why do you really got to make another $1 billion in the next fucking 2 years? Bro, can you be a good guy for 1 second?
Americans should care about the Koch brothers because they're arguably the most powerful force in American politics.
The Koch brothers are the 5th richest people in the United States with a combined worth of nearly $100 billion.
Okay, hang on. That's crazy. Matthew Krumlauf. My friend had to work web security for them and they forced all employees to read their manifesto. What? That's nuts. They are extremely ideological. They're libertarians, or at least billionaire libertarians who are maybe not as libertarian as they claim to be. A lot of people, including Jane Meyer and the guy who wrote Sons of Wichita and a lot of other people who wrote about them say, no. They really believe in libertarianism. That's a real big cause of them. So I guess this is a kind of an unpopular opinion. I don't think they're true libertarians. Not that I agree with libertarians. I think libertarians are idiots too, but I don't think they're libertarians. I think that they're billionaires who want to be able to do whatever they want. And they say they believe in libertarianism so that they can take advantage of a bunch of fucking tax codes. Yes, if anyone's wondering what I'm using, Obsidian, and I highly recommend it. I'm so new to it, but it's great. It's so easy to use.
They run Koch Industries, a secretive...
and it's free, and everything you make on it is saved locally to your computer. So you don't even have to worry about Google reading your shit.
Koch brothers are the 5th richest people in the United States with a combined worth of nearly $100 billion. They run Koch Industries, a secretive conglomerate that makes its money in the oil industry. A conglomerate founded by the brothers' father, Fred, who got rich building refineries for the Nazis after 1933.
All right, so that's all I'm going to play for now. Koch brothers, you get the idea. They are two extremely smart. They have very good business brains. Guys who inherited a massive fortune and made it into I already used massive. What's a bigger word than massive? Gargantuan, colossal fortune. They were able to really make a ton of money at the expense of you and everyone on Earth, essentially. Anyway, this is another fucking Americans for Prosperity thing about them talking about how unions are bad. Not really important to what we're talking about, but keep in mind, being anti-union is the number one cause for the elite class, the power elite. That is their number one thing, being anti-union. So no surprise, Americans for Prosperity are viciously anti-union. Now this is my biggest disappointment in my research here. I fucking tried so hard to find this. This is an ad that Americans for Prosperity put out. Americans for Prosperity launched a $140,000 advertising blitz in Virginia. This was played all around the country. Blah, 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 blah. Where does it say? And I have the fucking link to the thing. Can't load, but it was a YouTube link. I found the YouTube video. It isn't up anymore. I tried so hard to find this, guys. But I was able to find transcript of this. Get this. All right. At least a transcript for one of the ads. So the Americans for Prosperity had these ads playing. telling the American public that corrupt environmentalists, not billionaire right-wing oil and coal men, are manipulating Congress and the media. No, it's the environmentalists who are corrupt. They're the corrupt ones, not the fucking Koch brothers who are fucking billionaire evil monsters. According to the Americans for Prosperity, these ads expose the hypocrisy and outrageous economic costs of so-called global warming regulations, taxes, and green energy plans. All right, one of these ads portrays. Okay, here's the ad. A guy named Carlton. Sorry, this is a little bit hard to read. Hang on, let me just make this bigger. So this is the text on the ad, or the script. Hey there, and it was a hippie guy. It was like a hippie guy laying on his couch eating chips or something. Hey there, I'm Carlton, the wealthy eco-hypocrite. I inherited my money and attended fancy schools. I own 3 homes and 5 cars, but I always talk with my rich friends about saving the planet. And I want Congress to spend billions on programs in the name of global warming and green energy, even if it causes massive unemployment, higher energy bills, and digs people like you even deeper into the recession. Who knows? Maybe I'll even make money off of it. And it's like, oh my God, this is an ad funded by the Koch brothers, who, may I say, where they point out that he owns 3 homes and 5 cars. They have, and this is a quote from, again, Dark Money, Carlton was in fact the creation of Americans for Prosperity, the nonprofit social welfare group founded and heavily funded by David Koch, who of course had inherited hundreds of millions of dollars, attended Deerfield Academy, owned 4 homes, a ski lodge in Aspen, a Belle Epoque mansion, Via El Sarmiento in Palm Beach, a sprawling beach house in the Hamptons, and an 18-room duplex at 740 Park Avenue in Manhattan, and drove, among other cars, a Land Rover and a Ferrari. And then the person that they create as this straw man that they've created to be like, look how evil this guy is, and he's getting rich off of being an environmentalist. That guy has fewer homes, less cars, and inherited less money, and attended less fancy schools than the Koch brothers, who were the ones actually making the ad. This is like, isn't this nuts? This happened. This was something that happened. This is a fucking textbook example of the shit Alex Jones pretends to care about. Billionaires trying to give themselves excuses, trying to manufacture this fake outrage against environmentalists, spending, how much money does it say? Just on this one ad. $140,000 just in Virginia, and it did eventually play around the country. Just think about that shit. Isn't that nuts? Anyway, I tried to find the actual ad, and I can't. If I ever do find it, I would love to play it on stream. They wanted to convince the public that government action on climate change posed a threat to people like you or ordinary Americans' pocketbooks, but it of course posed a far greater threat to their own. And this is it. This is what Alex Jones is saying with the fucking carbon tax. No, the elites actually would love it if there's a carbon tax. No, they want to convince you that it hurts you. They desperately do not want there to be a carbon tax. They don't want anything, even the smallest thing that could possibly affect this. So these are just a few examples of the Koch brothers mostly, groups like Koch brothers, ExxonMobil, affecting the conversation, paying off Republican politicians. Think about even back with Frank Luntz in 2000. Why was it such a big deal for the Bush White House to be so anti-global warming? Bush said he didn't even believe in it. But yeah, you're getting the picture here, right? Everything we've seen so far, this is nothing. This is nothing. Because as we know, the way that the capitalist system works, again and again and again, shit keeps fucking snowballing, right? Snowballing. It keeps getting bigger, getting worse. The way the capitalism works, it's going to incentivize monopolies. It's going to incentivize people to get power and hold on to power. Inherited wealth is going to incentivize people to hoard wealth. That money, since money is very influential, you can use money to affect politics. And the more you affect politics to help you make more money, the more powerful you and others in your class become. And the harder it gets for social mobility, for people who start out at the bottom of social classes to work their way up to the top. And this is going to happen again and again and again and again and again, right? Constantly. The neoliberal era during the Reagan administration, the Thatcher administration in the UK, the neoliberalizing of the globe, starting in Chile, then moving to become the dominant economic ideology of planet Earth. This is another way in which the global elite have further exerted their power and influence over governments and beyond that, over the citizens of Earth. But one of the biggest fucking things ever to happen to help the elite was that something in the U.S. called Citizens United. You guys know Citizens United? You guys remember that? I've got a guy to tell you all about it, and his name is Mr. Beat. And the title of this video, super fucking good, I think. Why you can buy the next president. And this is from 2011. So this is during Obama's first term.
Mr. Beat presents Supreme Court Briefs.
Briefs.
In D.C., 2007. A self-described conservative nonprofit corporation called Citizens United wants to release a documentary. The film, called Hillary, the Movie, hey, that's a pretty catchy title, talks a bunch of trash about Hillary Clinton, who just so happens to be running for president. Citizens United wanted to distribute and advertise the film within a month before the Democratic primary elections in January 2008. However, this would be a violation of the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act, aka BICRA, aka the McCain-Feingold Act, the latest law that limited how political campaigns were paid for. It said corporations or labor unions can't spend money from their general treasury to broadcast anything through the mass media that specifically brings up a candidate running for federal office within 30 days of a primary. Anticipating that the Federal Election Commission, or FEC, might try to stop the release of their documentary, Citizens United went ahead and
Notice how all these fucking right-wing fucking elite-funded think tanks always have these basic ass names like Citizens United, Americans for Prosperity, USA is Good Association. It's all fucking patriotic, whatever. So when you come out against it, it's like, you're against citizens, you know? Anyway.
The FEC to the United States District Court, essentially saying,
don't even think about it, FEC.
Citizens United claimed BICRA didn't apply to Hillary the movie because the film wasn't clearly for or against a candidate. It also claimed that the Supreme Court decision FEC v. Wisconsin Right to Life justified them releasing the film within 30 days of the Democratic.
So total bullshit. That doesn't make any sense. Why would this is obviously the movie's called Hillary and you're putting it out during the fucking Democrat primary. That's obviously not cool.
Primaries. Not only that, but Citizens United argued that portions of BICRA straight up violated the First Amendment to the Constitution. On January 15th, 2008, the three-judge U.S. District Court said, nope, sorry, Citizens United, you can't have your injunction. You gotta let the FEC regulate. The court said the film was clearly just meant to get people to not vote for Hillary Clinton. I mean,
yeah. What the fuck? Yeah, I feel this sort of anti-Hillary thing was maybe in retrospect, and I'm not read up on this or anything. I mean, I was in high school when this was all going on, but or no, I guess I was in university. Well, whatever. Who knows how old I am? But it sort of feels like, you know how the Hillary campaign, they promoted Trump during the Republican primary. They're like, oh, we can definitely beat this guy. Yeah, let's fucking promote him. Let's help him win. And they actually helped him to go to this fucking landslide victory in the Republican primary and then lost to him. This is probably the similar sort of thing happening with the Republican organization. Like, oh my God, Obama, a black guy? Oh my, that would be so easy. Okay, let's fucking get this fucking Hillary documentary out there. You know what I mean? Because it's like, why are you getting involved in the primary, man? Are you sure?
Was called Hillary the Movie, for crying out loud. They also said the film was meant to be strategically shown right before the primary.
Yeah, I mean, Darkling, 100%. The right is so fucking good at thinking long term. Liberals just don't care. Electoral politics are important. It's important to vote, but what the fuck are the liberals going to do? They don't care. In order to think long term, you got to think about local judges and shit. If you watch the movie Jesus Camp, they're talking about overturning Roe v. Wade in the early 2000s. And how they're going to do that, they're going to replace all these judges and eventually get Supreme Court judges and eventually do this and do that. And it's like, yeah, they did it and it was a long-term project and it worked. And we don't think like that. And this is a radical organization. It's still fucking crazy that they overturned Roe v. Wade. That's almost as surprising as it would be if you guys got Medicare for all. That's even less surprising because most people want Medicare for all. Most people did not want the fucking Roe v. Wade overturned. Anyway.
for this purpose, and they cited the Supreme Court decision in McConnell v. FEC as justification that the FEC could prevent the showing of this film. Citizens United was like, you know what? I'm appealing to the Supreme Court.
There you
now,
go.
as you know, this can be a long process.
And think about this, guys. Citizens United is still fighting over the release of the Hillary movie in 2010. Obama's president at this point, and they're still like, no, we should be able to do it.
What ended up happening was Hillary Clinton did not get the Democratic nomination, and Barack Obama ended up being elected president later that year. But that ended up being irrelevant, other than the fact that Obama nominated a new justice, Sonia Sotomayor, that agreed with the justice she replaced, David Souter. Actually, that's kind of irrelevant too. Throughout 2009, the Supreme Court heard multiple arguments about the case. The court had remained very divided on the issue. Things got pretty philosophical. Finally, on January 21st, 2010, the court ruled 5-4 in favor of Citizens United.
So this is maybe the worst decision ever made by the Supreme Court. And oh my God, the Supreme Court has only gotten worse since then.
That the free speech clause of the First Amendment prohibited the government from limiting money spent by corporations, labor unions, and other associations on political campaigns. Specifically, we're talking about independent political expenditures or political campaign contributions not directly affiliated with the candidate. Justice Anthony Kennedy wrote the majority opinion, quote, "If the First Amendment has any force, it prohibits Congress from fining or jailing citizens or associations of citizens for simply engaging in political speech," unquote. The court's ruling basically freed corporations and unions to spend as much money as they want to elect or defeat candidates, as long as they didn't contribute directly to candidates or political.
Now, what the fuck is that? What the fuck is that? Rich people can spend as much as they want to influence elections. That's why Elon Musk can spend a fucking whatever he's how did he spend like $1 billion in the last 2 weeks of the campaign or something? I forget. It wasn't that much, but that shouldn't be allowed. That should not be allowed. You should not be allowed to do that. But no, yeah, there's no restrictions now.
The majority also argued that the First Amendment protects associations of individuals, not just individual speakers. So you can't prohibit speech based on the identity of the speaker. So corporations have free speech rights just like you or I. The idea of corporate personhood, or the legal notion that corporations share some of the same legal rights and responsibilities held by individuals, had pretty much been established by the Supreme Court since the 1800s. In this case, the court definitely ruled that corporations are people, man. Corporations are people. Justice John Paul Stevens led the opinion of the dissent. Stevens was pretty upset about how this one turned out. His dissent was 90.
I mean, technically, the First Amendment is about Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. I suppose you're right. I guess at least if you do consider corporations people, then a corporation funding a bunch of propaganda or lies, spreading disinformation is a form of speech, establishing, abridging the freedom of speech or the right of the people peaceably to assemble. I mean, I guess, yeah. I mean, that certainly is a interesting legal argument, but I don't really care. I sort of just want things to be as good as possible. Anyway.
Passionately summarized it for 20 minutes from the bench. Stevens later wrote a book explaining that a constitutional amendment should be passed to make sure money doesn't influence politics, mostly due to this ruling. Today, Citizens United v. FEC continues to get people fired up.
If we are going to maintain a true democracy in this country, it is absolutely imperative that we overturn this disastrous 5-4 Supreme Court decision on Citizens United.
Protesters have passionately spoke out against it, and organizations like Wolfpack were created in response to the decision. Just like Roe v. Wade, this is a Supreme Court decision that will be discussed and debated for many years to come.
So FEC does have max contributions for candidates and for corporations. It's the same. No one can contribute over a certain amount. This is different. This is not, you're not contributing directly to a campaign. You're contributing propaganda or anything that's separate from the actual campaign you're allowed to fund, which before you weren't allowed to do that. You can spend infinite money. So if you've ever heard of a super PAC, super PACs did not exist before the Citizens United. It's Citizens United, and there was another fucking ruling that same year that helped super PACs exist. But super PACs, political action committee or something, where they can just take in as much money they want from shell corporations, completely dark money, impossible to tell where it's from, and that super PAC can just make all these fucking massive ad campaigns, like the documentary that he was talking about earlier about Hillary. They can do whatever they want. They can do whatever they want as long as they're technically not associated with the campaign. But you as a citizen, if you're not a billionaire, you are limited because you just don't have money. You don't have money. Shit's hard. Most people cannot spend money to fund a super PAC, to get all these fucking ads up and disinformation campaigns and funding people to go and say that, actually global warming is not a big deal at all or whatever, which is the main thing we're talking about. But it's not just that. It's a lot of fucking ill lobbying, right? All of the APAC shit goes into massive attack at George Latimer versus Jamal Bowman in New York. Westchester. How you fucking say that? I went door knocking. Weirdly. That was the number one most money ever put into a campaign or ever, whatever. What was that? Was that from APAC? Yeah, I forget exactly what it was. It must have been a super PAC sort of thing. Massive amount of attack ads against Jamal Bowman, who ended up losing. Yeah, very bad. So that's one video on Citizens United. I had more, including this one, which is by the Federalist Society, where they're sort of like, it's actually not a big deal and it is totally a good thing, but you get the idea. But here, to me, this is what really sums it up. Okay, this is a quote this is one of, I don't want to say my favorite quotes. This quote explains so much about the fucking world today. So as soon as the court, this is from Dark Money by Jane Meyer. As soon as the court handed down its Citizens United decision, Gillespie grasped its promise. Within weeks, he set out to Texas with his fellow Bush White House alumnus Karl Rove to pitch deep-pocketed oil men at the Dallas Petroleum Club on a plan to fund a new kind of shadow political machine. Instead of giving just to the Republican Party or its candidates and having the size of their donations limited, the high rollers could now legally funnel limitless amounts of cash to outside organizations that Rove and Gillespie were about to create, the two operatives explained. These new groups would act as the privatized auxiliary force, and remember we talked about this earlier, that Rove had been dreaming about for years. Remember way back before all this. Karl Rove, the fucking, what was his name? The turd sandwich or whatever? So Bush had a bunch of hilarious nicknames for him. Turd Blossom, yes, thank you. The Turd Blossom. He dreamed of a never-ending campaign. He dreamed of creating a conservative political machine outside the traditional political party's control that could be funded by virtually unlimited private fortunes. But of course, at the time, this was illegal, but not anymore. So he goes to the fucking oil men, the Koch, like an ExxonMobil, whatever, all the deep-pocketed oil men, as it says here. Rove told the money men, this is it. All right, this is the fucking quote here. People call us a vast right-wing conspiracy, but we're really a half-assed right-wing conspiracy. Now, he emphasized, it's time to get serious. So, vast right-wing conspiracy was a term I think coined by Hillary Clinton. Hillary talked about, there's a vast right-wing conspiracy that's just against us at every turn during the Clinton administration. And it was one of those things, kind of like basket of deplorables or something like that, where it's like, she's technically right. And I wouldn't have put it like that, but yeah, she's not wrong. That the right seized on. It was like, this idiot actually thinks there's a vast right-wing conspiracy. And as I think I've shown, at least this is only in one fucking issue. We're only talking about climate shit. But there's a fucking vast right-wing conspiracy in fucking anti-union shit, fucking anti-healthcare shit, all kinds of vast right-wing conspiracies. But even that shit that was real, that did happen, was nothing compared to this. And I just love so much that this fucking paradigm shift, not paradigm shift, but this fucking, not just of the view of the world, this moment where the world changed, this turning point for the global power elites, at least the American power elites, is marked by a fucking dad joke from Turd Blossom himself, Karl Rove. Hey, we used to be called a vast right-wing conspiracy, but we were more of a half-assed right-wing conspiracy. Not anymore. Now we will become the fucking vast right-wing conspiracy that they've been talking about. You gotta be so evil to say that shit. Anyway, all right. Okay, so that's Citizens United. Things get even worse after that. This is from 2011. The Carbon Brief analyzed the 900 papers supporting climate skepticism. 9 out of the 10 top 10 authors were linked to ExxonMobil. All of these papers, that are like, actually, the climate's fine and we don't need to worry about it, funded by ExxonMobil. 9 out of 10. Out of more than 900 papers concerning relating to a negative environmental or socioeconomic effect, the top 10 contributors are responsible for 186 of them. So almost, that'd be about, 20% of those papers done by 10 people, and 9 of those 10 people funded by ExxonMobil. That's crazy. All right. Now, I want to play this clip from InfoWars in 2011. If you watch enough InfoWars, you can kind of always, within a 2 to 3 year time span, you can be like, oh yeah, this is the fucking 2011 set. But he's introducing one of his guests. This is a regular guest of his, a guy who comes on a lot to talk about climate shit. And his name's Lord Monckton. Lord Monckton.
A zombie army wanting to seize power. Lord Monckton, thank you for coming on with us today.
Yes, Lord Monckton looks like that. Okay, take a minute to get over it. This is him, Lord Monckton. Yep. And I think that's fine. I think it's totally fine to look like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is what he chooses to do with his life while looking like that.
Well, it's a pleasure to be back, Alex, and so soon after yesterday. And of course,
this guy's a fucking caricature of a fucking, wealthy British fucking aristocrat.
I quite understand. This is an important moment where, yet again, an extreme leftist, effectively a Marxist or fascist government, they're the same, whichever side of the...
Effectively a Marxist or fascist government, they're the same, by the way. Don't look it up. They're the same. Please don't look up who they came for first and then they came for poem. But yes, fascists and communist Marxists, all the same thing.
Coin you look has rammed through the carbon tax it had long been talking about. And it did so by buying off a couple of the independents who
Lord Christopher Cousin-Lover
might have stood out and done the right thing and would have become national heroes if they had. But they're set up for life financially now. So
yeah, he looks like he has a botched nose job and a botched every other type of job you can get. So he's in Australia at the time. He's British, and he's been on Alex Jones' show a lot, but he tours around the world, and he's an only issue. I love ExxonMobil. I love the Koch brothers. I love oil industry. And all of these laws are actually really mean to them. But he's in Australia at this point because they were talking about doing carbon taxes.
Can you tell us how much time you've spent there and what you saw?
Well, yes, I first was asked to go there in January, February of last year, and I went at the request of 2 retired engineers from Noosa, patriots both of them, Kay Smith and John Smead.
Patriots both of them.
And they were absolutely determined that the other side of the case on the carbon tax should be fairly and squarely put by somebody who could command the headlines. And because the left like to attack me because I'm a peer and I'm an aristocrat and chinless wonder, if you like.
I know. I mostly wanted to play for that. He's like, because the radical fascist left loves to say that I'm I don't know, chinless wonder, so to speak, a product of cousin fucking, if you will, that you may notice. Because I'm basically such a butt ugly fucking twat, I do command headlines quite frequently, and I can use that. The left, who I'm unable to look directly at because that particular direction my eyes can't move in. Anyway, I'm sorry. I don't want to make fun of the guy. He would have been great in Weapons. Yeah, the job was botched, whatever the job was. He kind of looks like a pigeon. Could be. This guy could be from the pigeon lobby. All right. Now, who the fuck is this guy, right? Alex's fucking anti-climate friend goes on, tells him about carbon tax. Well, let's find out. So first of all, first thing you got to know is he's not a lord, and he shouldn't be calling himself that. He's a third, I don't know how to say this, Viscount? I said it wrong in a video once, and people were making fun of me. Viscount? Don't know. Monckton of Brinchley. He's still got a fucking classy name, but he calls himself Lord Monckton. He is not a lord, and he's not allowed to call him that. And the House of Lords in fucking England, I think, sent him a cease and desist letter or whatever it is. It's technically what he is, a hereditary peer. Whatever the fuck that is. All right, I do not care at all about this thing. The guy is still a climate change denier in 2026. Isn't that nuts? This is me. This is from 2007. This is, around the time that Alex was doing the clip that we watched at the beginning where he's like, carbon tax, they actually do want it. And this is a letter he wrote for the Charleston Daily Mail, his home state newspaper. And it was a letter to ExxonMobil, hinting at future congressional action if the company continues to fund scientific debate on the issue. An intemperate attempt to squelch debate with a hint of political consequences. So here's the fucking letter he wrote. From the Viscount Monckton of Brenchley, the U.S. Constitution guarantees the right of free speech. It is inappropriate for elected senators such as yourselves to suggest that any person should refrain from exercising that right, as you've done in your letter of October 27th to the CEO of ExxonMobil. The great corporation has exercised its right of free speech, and with good reason, in openly providing support for scientists and groups that dare to question how much the increased concentration of CO2 in the air may harm the world. You defy every tenet of democracy when you invite ExxonMobil to deny itself the right to provide information to senior elected and appointed government officials, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. It's a letter about how ExxonMobil is being bullied by the mean environmentalists. And, the government's so mean. This is the fucking Bush government. This is the Bush government. Bush. George Bush, who is from an oil family. His family is oil. Fucking Dick Cheney. Halliburton, those fucking guys invaded Iraq for oil. That was the oil administration. And still, 2 environmentalists for ExxonMobil. Well, as it turns out, Lord Monckton works for CFACT, C-F-A-C-T. And CFACT happens to be Washington, D.C. based Committee for a Constructive Tomorrow. Another one of those fucking weird think tank names. Founded in 1985. That picture of Al Gore breathing fire on the earth. Oh, I love it. I love it so much. All I really wanted to show you guys was the groups that have received funding from ExxonMobil or the Koch brothers. CFACT has received funding from both. Note that while ExxonMobil has donated over $582,000 to CFACT over the years, Exxon Secret's fact sheet, the oil company reports that it never funds the organization. Okay. It's in 2017. So this dude, this guy who's on Alex Jones's page all the time and is whatever, he's funded by the fucking elites. He's funded by the people who, Alex says, they're lying to you. They're telling you one thing when they really want the opposite. They're lying. No, man. They are lying to you. You're the one spreading their fucking message. You're literally doing that thing. You're saying they do want carbon taxes when they don't. You're the fucking Briar Rabbit, Sir Alex Jones, and fucking Lord Christopher Monckton. It's you. J'accuse. It's you. This one, okay, this is 2015. As you can see, if you watch my video on Pizzagate, you can sort of recognize that set, right? It's a 2015, 2016 InfoWars set. But I did want to show this because it's just kind of a crazy Alex Jones rant that's kind of good.
We didn't get Breitbart and Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck and Sean Hannity to pick up our talking points. What we're saying is true. You're a criminal gang who wants to make money on all human activities. You point cameras. I've got a scoop of news today.
It's funny he complains about Rush Limbaugh stealing his talking points. He stole Rush Limbaugh's talking points. Whole grift. He stole lines from him and shit.
Where they point cameras in the winter at power plants, and they show what looks like smoke shooting out of them, but it's water vapor. That's why the smoke ends a couple of 100 feet above it. Because it's not smoke. It's like the smoke when you're 2 years old, you think blows out of your mouth when you go outside in the cold, snowy wind. It's not smoke. It's water condensation.
Yeah, that's what's coming out. Yeah, the fucking coal plants in your neighborhood, that's just fucking like a little kid on the playground at winter breathing out smoke. That's all it is. Don't you know how fucking coal plants are powered? It's a bunch of children out for recess inside of those big pipes. That's what that is. That's not smoke. That's fine. That's vapor, okay? It's vape. It's vaping, okay? Coal is green.
Now, I know our listeners know that, but I look at these parlor tricks. They never stop. They're back on the news saying polar bears can't swim and penguins are dying. They can't swim.
He's like, yeah, if all the ice melts and the polar bears have to swim everywhere, that's fine. They can swim. So that they can't swim. It's that at some point they need to have land.
Sheets have both gotten bigger. The planet's going into a cold stage because the sun's going partially dormant. It's a known cycle. It was predicted by all the astrophysicists 50 years ago? It doesn't matter, because the UN 5 years ago had a vote and said, no, the sun doesn't affect climate one bit.
Totally not true.
That's like saying...
Obviously, the sun affects climate. The greenhouse effect involves the sun. His straw man of scientists, no, the sun isn't a part. No, the sun is a huge part of it.
Oxygen doesn't affect humans one bit. We'd die without sunlight. We'd die. We'd be absolute zero in a matter of days. The sun is the complete driver. Everything else isn't even a few percentage points in the different metric breakdowns. Not thermal energy.
He's so fired up about this thing that he's completely wrong about. What he's saying is not true.
Not different radiation from deep space. None of it. It doesn't even show up compared to that giant thermonuclear fireball. These people feed us pure lies like we're idiots. And the message becomes the medium, becomes the people. You have been fed mindless tripe to the point that most people can't even understand what I'm saying right now. I'm talking about mainline idiots.
You get the idea. Oh, I mean, like, he's always been a grifter. But I'm always caught between, is Alex Jones actually being paid by these, whatever, evil billionaires? I mean, I'm sure he's being funded by them in some way, you know, maybe similar to the Tim Pool shit or whatever. Russia was giving this guy $1 million a month to say whatever they wanted him to say. Maybe it's something like that. Maybe it's something more covert, but he is so useful to a lot of the kind of elite powers that I'm actually not sure sometimes, is he just an idiot? Is he a useful idiot for these people? Or is he directly regurgitating their talking points? And honestly, I lean more towards that it is a direct funding thing. I do sort of think, you know, based on the people he has on his show, Lord Monckton's one example, but the guy has a lot of compromised people on his show that he really shouldn't. Oh, yes, okay. So this is where things kind of shift a little bit, right? Now, the same sort of thing happened in Canada. And again, please don't tune out. Don't change that. Don't touch that dial. All right, we are definitely not going to talk about Canada for that long, but I will say something that happened in Canada is that even though the carbon tax, everybody's against the carbon tax, you know, axe the tax, Pierre Poilievre's big slogan, and then Mark Carney came in and he just kind of fucking ate Poilievre's milkshake, drank his milkshake by just axing the tax before he could even get in. So we haven't even had carbon tax. But here's a weird thing that the carbon companies in Canada have been doing for a while. They want the carbon tax. Yeah, give us a carbon tax, but they're using it as a bargaining chip. You can't deny climate change forever, right? Eventually you have to be like, okay, it is real, but it's not us doing it. And then you gotta be like, okay, it is us doing it, but it's not that bad. And you're like, okay, it is that bad, but it's more important that we continue to fund it so that we can use that climate, whatever, carbon to find a solution. Eventually your excuses get closer and closer. Like, they know they're going to get cut off eventually. Their goal is to pull as much oil as they can out of the ground in the meantime. And what you'll find is in Canada, some oil companies have been like, I'm in favor of a carbon tax, and in exchange, we will get rebates. Like Jason Kenney, the Alberta premier before, he offered rebates to the oil companies that just evened it out so that they weren't being taxed anything at all. Shit like that. So they would use it as a bargaining chip. And so here's what starts happening in America. This is from Vox. In 2018, Exxon is lobbying for a carbon tax. Weird. The oil giant wants immunity from lawsuits that would make it pay for the damages of climate change. Now, this is another thing. This is a more radical idea than carbon taxing. It's called polluters pay. I think that's what it's called. Polluters pay, where we figure out whose fault it is that the earth is fucking cooked. We figure out whose fault it is. That would not be hard to do. We could pretty easily get the names of the people who are still living anyway, who are the most responsible for why it's so fucking cold this winter and it's so fucking hot in the summer, and why the fucking ocean levels are rising and the fucking polar bears are treading water. We could figure out who that is and we could force them to pay, because they're all fucking billionaires. We could do that. So at this point, ExxonMobil's like, hey, you know what? Actually, carbon taxes seem like a good call. How about let's do carbon taxes. Actually, we're very pro-environment now, and I think carbon taxes are good. But let's just say, you know what? Just make it interesting. You guys aren't ever allowed to sue us. Does that sound good? That's kind of the move. So just to go against the subsidy. That's it. Yeah. Carbon tax credits. Yeah. Yes, carbon taxes trade on the derivative market. That's how fucking Tesla has made so much fucking money. Yeah, it's, remember those airline whistleblowers? Fossil fuel industry is way bigger than an airline. Way bigger than an airline. Yeah, the airlines can do fucking shady shit. The fossil fuel industry can invade countries, okay? Fossil fuel industry is the first coup the CIA ever did was on behalf of British Petroleum in Iran. That is what basically the purpose of the CIA was for oil. Why do you think there are so many CIA-related oil men from George H.W. Bush fucking on down? Fucking, yeah, this is too big of a topic to really cover in one stream, but I'm mainly trying to get to just give you an impression of how brutal shit is. But then Trump comes around, right? And Trump and the Koch brothers hate each other. I'll play you this clip.
A few thoughts now on the battle within the Republican Party. The Koch brothers treating Republican candidates.
Why is he so nervous there? This is like a child giving a speech in front of their school.
The Republican Party, the Koch brothers treating Republican candidates.
Why did he get scared? Did he get scared because he's criticizing the Koch brothers?
Politicians and elected officials alike as if they owned them. Isn't that preposterous? And when they and other donors beckon, the Republican Party seems to rush to please the brothers Koch.
I want to point out, this is shit that leftists have been saying for a long time. Not a lot of liberals really cared about this, but leftists have been saying it for a while. Obama didn't give a shit about fucking, ending fracking or anything like that. But the Koch brothers do control the Republican Party. They have made the Republican Party theirs. They have captured it. And now with Trump, because Trump is against the Kochs, all of a sudden he can say this. He can just say the truth that's been in plain sight for so long.
Trump declined their summons, however, in part, I'm fairly certain, because the Kochs have been less than respectful.
How weird is it? Okay, I never watched, I guess I've seen clips of Dobbs. Is it always like this? Because it looks like he's just literally got his fucking teleprompter up on screen. It's like subtitled. It's like watching a TikTok video.
Full of Mr. Trump, who wants to tear asunder the very establishment they represent. But Paul Ryan, he did genuflect, and he did do as he was told by the brothers Koch. Paul Ryan
he calls them the brothers Koch.
Beautifully addressed the Koch donor network yesterday. The House Speaker told the donor class, and the Kochs, of course, that Republicans are facing a, quote, fight for the soul of our party, adding that the party is, quote, trying to restore ourselves as protectors of the market and not of the business. Ryan apparently doesn't grasp the obvious irony of the third most important person in government flying across the country to do his master's bidding. This is without question a struggle for the identity of the Republican Party, but right now it looks as if the Speaker's identity is quite clear, and his identity doesn't reflect well on him or the party. The struggle Ryan referenced is well underway. It's why the GOP establishment attacks Trump with fury equal to that of the left.
Awesome. So anyway, whatever. I'm not going to play the full thing, but you get the idea. So this is weird, right? Because Trump is bad. Obviously, I don't like Trump, but it is good to be against the Kochs. It's good to call them out for being super corrupt and controlling the Republican Party, which I think inarguably they did. And if you're still confused, check this out. So this is this is from 2024. I saw somebody in here, Koch brothers disappeared, replaced with Elon money. If only that were the case. No, that is not. I mean, one of them is dead, but Charles Koch, who is still alive. I think David Koch died, right? Do I have the right one? Anyway, whatever. Whichever one it is that's still fucking breathing fucking unpolluted air is still donating shit, still funding the Americans for Prosperity. Remember them? The guys from the beginning here. And look at this. The money they spent in 2024, this past election. Number one was Nikki Haley. By far the majority of their money, almost half of the money they spent was on Nikki Haley. Their second place was Donald Trump. They spent $10 million against. They spent $10 million on attack ads for Donald Trump. That's more than they spent against Joe Biden. So they literally, if they're voting with their dollar, they hated Trump more than they hated Biden. Isn't that weird? Yeah, Nikki who? Yeah, that was their little pipe dream. They desperately wanted a different candidate. Well, isn't that weird? Isn't that interesting? Now, we zoom out a little bit from the Koch brothers. The fossil fuel industry, okay? This is ExxonMobil and everybody else. They spent over $219 million on the Trump campaign. Ted Cruz, one of the biggest fucking oil money sluts. The president got $2,275,000. The Senate got $7 million. The House got $16 million. Outside, but that's directly to their campaigns, right? That's not including the Citizens United shit. This is like the FEC limits. Get this, guys. Yeah, $219 million went directly to the politicians themselves. Okay, great. Old school. How much did they spend in fucking super PACs and shit? Over $4 billion. $4 billion. Billion with a B. In various contributions to the candidates' campaign committees and outside groups supporting them. Most of the money in politics isn't given to specific candidates. It goes to political action committees, yada, yada, yada. $4 billion from the oil and gas industry trying to get Trump to win and other Republicans. Look at this. Outside spending from the oil and gas industry grew 75-fold. 75 times more money spent after 2010. You can see Citizens United in 2010. Look at that shit, eh? Contributions from outside spending and soft money. Individual donors keeps going up too, but wow. Yeah, the world sucks. The world sucks. Look at this. In 1992, they gave $7 million to Democrats, $14 million to Republicans. This is from the Oil and Gas Corporation. 2024, same money. Their allowance hasn't gone up. $7 million to Democrats, who are corrupt and evil. Don't get me wrong. I hate them too. But they gave $59 million now to Republicans. That's crazy, right? That's nuts. I gotta say, I'm not happy about it. And why might that be, right? So okay, you gotta ask yourself, okay? So the Koch brothers are against Trump. The Koch brothers are against him. They hate Trump. What do you think's going on there? Ask yourself why the Koch brothers are against Trump. I want to read this though too. This is from another one of my favorite books, Who Rules America by Domhoff, which, we've certainly talked about a lot before on this stream, but I wanted to read you guys this quote here. The first Trump cabinet, so this is 2016, began with a Secretary of State who is a former CEO of ExxonMobil and a member of the Business Roundtable. The Business Roundtable is the #1 most influential group, more than Bohemian Grove, more than anything. It has the most crossover from Fortune 500 companies, people on their board of directors. Anyway, he disagreed often with the president and called the president a fucking moron after a contentious meeting in which the president dismissed every piece of information that leaders in state, treasury, and defense departments tried to provide him on major foreign policy and defense issues, including the fact that Iran was in compliance with the nuclear weapons treaty it had signed with the United States. He was replaced. So he kicked off this first guy he had, this former CEO of ExxonMobil, replaced him by an ultra-conservative who had graduated from West Point and eventually became a member of the House of Representatives from Wichita area of Kansas with the financial support of the major owner of one of the largest privately held corporations in the United States, Koch Industries. So he got a fucking Koch brothers guy, a Brothers Koch guy instead of the ExxonMobil guy. That's weird for a guy who supposedly hates Koch. That's only one example. There's a ton of fucking guys with Koch industry ties working in the Trump administration. But that's just one example. Now I want to, before I tie this all together, I want to go way back. Way back to 1958, founding of the John Birch Society. John Birch Society, these were the original fucking New World Order guys, okay? These were the guys, aside from whatever, H.G. Wells or wherever that term originated. Founded by Robert Welch Jr., promoted Americanism as a philosophical antithesis of communism. Look at this. Okay. John Birch Society established on December 9th, 1958. The founding members of the JBS included Harry Lind Bradley, Fred C. Koch. Okay, Koch brothers' dad, founder of Koch Industries. Skipping ahead, Koch became one of the organization's primary financial supporters. According to investigative journalist Jane Meyer, person who wrote Dark Money, David Koch and Charles Koch, Koch's sons, were also members of the John Birch Society. However, they left before the 1970s. A transcript of Welch's 2-day presentation at the founding meeting was published as the Blue Book of the John Birch Society. And I want to read a little clip from John Welch's speech at the very first John Birch Society thing. Both the U.S. and Soviet governments are controlled by the same conspiratorial cabal of internationalists, greedy bankers, and corrupt politicians. If left unexposed, the traitors inside the U.S. government would betray the country's sovereignty to the United Nations for a collectivist New World Order managed by a one-world socialist government. Okay, all right, that's That's 1958. That's Robert Welch. Funded by the Koch brothers' dad, talking about New World Order, one world government, fucking the communists and the whatever, fascists and the U.S. government are all controlled by the same people. This is 1958 we're talking about here, okay? This is old. This is the primordial ooze out of which you get shit like the first fucking primates. Gary Allen, who is a major, he's a conservative writer, a prominent member of the John Birch Society. He wrote the book, None Dare Call It Conspiracy. I read this book, really fucking stupid. One of the worst fucking ever definitions of communism I've ever read. Very stupid book, but kind of well written in a weird way where it's very intriguing sort of thing. It really gets you pumped up, and it makes you feel you're really uncovering secrets that they don't want you to know about. In the book, they assert the modern political and economic systems in most developed nations are the result of a sweeping conspiracy by the establishment's power elite, for which he also uses the term insiders. They want to put forward their socialist communist agenda, establish an income tax system as a means of extorting money from the common man, establish a central bank deceptively named so that people will think it is part of the government, have this bank be the holder of the national debt, run the national debt and the interest thereon sky high through wars and or any sort of deficit spending, starting with World War I, Council on Foreign Relations. This is the fucking DNA, right, of the modern kind of conspiracy movement. In fact, this is from Alex Jones's Wikipedia page, and it's his early life and influences. As a teenager, he read None Dare Call It Conspiracy, a book by John Birch Society conspiracy theorist Gary Allen, which alleged global bankers, rather than elected officials, controlled American politics. It had a profound influence on him, and Jones has described Allen's work as the easiest to read primer on the New World Order. Okay, so now we're seeing the full picture here, all right? We got everything going on. We got the Koch brothers, the Koch father founding the John Birch Society. We've got this early right-wing conspiracy kind of movement associated with the Barry Goldwater campaign, the John Birch Society, later books None Dare Call It Conspiracy, the young Alex Jones read. Then we've got the climate movement with Luntz. What we're looking at here, what I've tried to sketch out for y'all, is an actual conspiracy in the sense that Parenti gives us here. People colluding in secret to pursue illegal, unlawful, or immoral goals with the intent of advancing the interests of people who are not acknowledging their association to this action. This is the very fucking textbook definition of dark money. Advancing interests without acknowledging your connection to that advancement. This is what they do. This is what fucking Citizens United allowed them to do and what they were already doing anyway before that. This is the Koch brothers. This is ExxonMobil. This is fucking Lord Monkton appearing on Alex Jones. This is Alex Jones talking about carbon tax as if that's something that the elites want on InfoWars. This is everything. So all I got to ask is, why is Trump against the Koch brothers? That part. Why is that? Why is that happening? Why is Alex Jones kind of right here? That looks like Donald Trump, maybe he does represent some other side, even though he's still working with Koch brothers guys on his team and ExxonMobil and stuff. He's taking millions of dollars from, how much did he take from them in the last election? $2 million from the oil lobby. What's going on here, right? Well, I would say the best person to explain it would be Alex Jones himself. How the elite control politics.
I wanted to draw a picture for listeners out there, a very simple, crude picture that describes effectively the false left-right paradigm. The Republican Party props up the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party props up the Republican Party.
All right. I want to replace the Democrat Party and Republican Party with the Koch brothers and the other oil billionaires.
If you had one of the political parties standing on its own, when the wind came along, it would just fall over. When pressure, revolutionary pressure from the population not liking what's going on, or new groups wanting the power structure, which is the main source of revolution. Most of it is driven by evil, just like the elite is driven by evil.
Okay, evil.
Very rare to have a altruistic revolution.
That's kind of funny. Most revolutions are driven by good intentions, sort of like the path to hell. But this is what it is, right? It's fake. It's a fake fight because the Kochs have benefited massively from Trump. or the Koch, I should say now. The Koch has benefited massively from Trump, and he will continue to benefit massively from Trump. He doesn't, what he actually doesn't like about Trump is Charles Koch is a libertarian, and he doesn't like the tariffs and all these sort of insane, stupid things that Trump is doing to the economy. Charles Koch, this guy's nuts. It's way better when we get a regular Republican in there who doesn't just fucking shit the bed every fucking day. But overall, the guy has made so much money off of Donald Trump. However, when he does put this fucking fight up, people like Lou Dobbs and a lot of people get to play act as though Trump is an elite. It's like that fucking picture, right? The Democrats, they lean on the Republicans. They support each other. It's like that, but it's like Trump and the Koch brothers. That is what they're doing. That is what they're doing. And just to really bookend this,
check it out, folks.
Check it out, folks.
Why do you see so many leftists who mean well, like Rage Against the Machine, Tom Morello, or Henry Rollins, who are right on so many issues but then believe in leftist policies? We need a global carbon tax, but there's an elite funding that. No, the elite, the big corporations are against it because the media advertises that big corporations and oil companies are against it. Henry Rollins doesn't know, doesn't have the documents. It doesn't understand that actually that's part of a sophisticated game that, the big corporations say publicly, we don't want this, it's bad, while they actually fund it.
I love it. He puts his hand next to his like, oh no. So this I find so fucking crazy, right? Let me just spell it out what I'm thinking. I'm sure you guys have maybe come to the same conclusion, or you can tell where I'm going with this. But what he's just describing there is it's actually accurate. It's almost 100% accurate, except he's doing it in reverse, Or he's saying like,
yeah, the elites, they try to make you think they want one thing, but they actually want the opposite.
Like, yes, but that is what you are doing. You are trying to say that the elites want a carbon tax so that they can fund their new world order or whatever.
They know the public's awake to the fact that they're corrupt, so the public will be fooled and go and support the agenda. It's please don't throw me in the briar patch. It's the old briar rabbit situation. Here's the political field, and this is where the population resides. And then we supposedly...
The briar rabbit. It's a briar rabbit.
Briar rabbit, but yeah. But it is a briar rabbit situation, but it's fucking Alex Jones throwing the fucking world in the fucking briar patch. I'm almost fully convinced Alex Jones has been a paid shill since at least the 2000s. I'm almost totally convinced of that. I don't know. He might just be a very useful idiot. But God, the guy has so much money. Is that all from supplements? Supplements will get you rich, but doing the work of the most evil ghouls on the planet who have the most money, that'll get you fucking wealthy. That'll get you rich as fuck. Maybe he's just got fucking completely fucking MK Ultra'd by the John Birch Society by reading the None Dare Call It Conspiracy and be like,
oh yeah, the New World Order. That's why we should do everything that's in the benefit of the wealthiest fucking assholes. The fucking Nazi Fred Koch.
That's another reason why Trump shouldn't hate the Koch brothers, is that he also has a dad named Fred who was a fucking Nazi wealthy businessman who he inherited his money from.